Do you want to know how to correct children without being condescending? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting and good communication all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about good, calm parenting practices. In this video, we're going to talk about condescending parenting, what that looks like, and I'm going to share an experience from my life. And then also we're going to talk about what you can do to make sure that you really nail those parenting interactions without being condescending to your children. So what does it mean to be condescending? When a person is condescending, that means they're talking down to somebody. They're acting as if that person is significantly beneath them, maybe even ignorant, acting like the person does not know anything. It may seem like parents could talk condescending to their children because they do know more than their children on most things. In fact, most parents have had more life experience, of course, but also understand behavior with a little bit broader context than the children do who are stuck with a myopic view of just what's going on right in the moment. However, I don't think that is going to be useful for developing relationship if your child feels like you are talking down to them as if they are stupid or don't know something. The best thing that you want to do is speak to them with a nurturing tone. So when your child is going to learn from you and really hold on to it, then they want to feel like you care, you're teaching, you're nurturing them in a good way, you're giving them some important information, but you're not thinking that it's something that they didn't understand beforehand. In most cases, children actually understand a portion of the teaching that you're going to be giving them before you even give it. So they can learn some things just by context, by cause and effect, before you even fully bring the situation to their attention. But then when you give them further instruction and teaching, you will be connecting dots together for them. That doesn't mean they didn't know everything that you're going to say. They probably knew a portion of it. You're just going to be giving them a little bit of new information as you discuss the entire situation. So give them some credit when you're talking to them and correcting them in a situation. Now remember I said that I was going to share a story from my life. Well, I actually have a friend who talks in a way to his children that is very condescending. In fact, it's really hard to be around him because he talks down to his children so much. He'll even say things like, "Well, that was stupid. How come you didn't know that?" And I'll see his children emotionally retreat from him and feel like they need to protect themselves a little bit. So I feel them and see them put up these emotional walls. Suddenly, no matter what he tells them, they are not fully listening to because they feel like they have been emotionally attacked or that they are not given any credit for what they might already know. The best thing that you can do is to actually elevate your child's position in your mind. So when you're speaking to them, give them some credit in your mind. Think to yourself, okay, what do they already know? How can we build on that? Or could there be things that they already understand and that they've already learned that maybe I need to just address so that we're on the same page? So let's take a social situation, for instance. It's one thing to say to a child, your friend probably thinks you're stupid right now because of what you just said to them. They're probably not even wanting to hang out with you anymore. That is very condescending. The child probably has already recognized that something went wrong socially. So a better way to enter that corrective moment with the child would be to say something like this. You've probably noticed that after you said that statement to your friend, that they pulled back from you a little bit and they're starting to not want to engage with you in as much conversation. It's probably because they feel like you're not giving them credit for what they already know. Or you might say, or it's probably because they're feeling like you maybe aren't being understanding about whatever the circumstance is. What you could do instead is you could phrase your situation like this. The way that you see your child during an interaction makes all the difference. This is the tone part of the teaching that you definitely want to make sure that you nail if possible. So if you've already subscribed to this Teaching Self-Government channel, then you know I talk all about self-government. So I'd like to look through the lens of self-government as we discuss how to not be condescending when we're talking to our children. So what is self-government? Self-government is being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control them. So what that means is that the person understands cause and effect as it relates to their own thoughts, behaviors, and interactions with other people. They make plans for how they want to succeed, and then they course correct regularly as they self-assess and analyze as they're moving forward with all of their interactions. The whole goal of self-government is that a person will get to a place where they're able to analyze themselves and course correct themselves without any help from anyone else. That's a great goal, isn't it? So what that means is that initially the parent does a lot of assessment for the child, brings it to the child's attention, and helps the child learn from that and move on. But the child has to have some buy-in. If the child doesn't have some buy-in, then the child is not going to get to a place where they start self-governing themselves, doing the analysis and the assessment for themselves and pointing themselves toward course correction. They have to see that that's a healthy thing to happen. And so that means that it has to feel safe all the way along. It has to feel natural, and the child has to feel themselves maturing in the process of the corrections and the feedback interactions that the parent has with the child. So when I'm talking about feedback, I'm talking about things like praising, pre-teaching the child for things upcoming, as well as correcting the child or helping the child in an intensive teaching situation when a child is starting to go completely out of control. It is important that the parent does not get emotional with the child, but instead just describes things on the surface. If the parent stays at a descriptive place with the child, then the child gets the full opportunity to describe the situation for themselves too and learn from the situation, so that when they have a circumstance in the future that they need to assess, that they feel it's completely healthy and normal to just start describing the situation to themselves. This way they don't get overly emotional about mistakes that they've made. They don't tear themselves down, tell themselves they're not good humans, they're not good people, and start to do self-loathing behaviors. But instead they say, okay, this is what is happening. That's okay, because I can just analyze this and I can move forward. So the tone that you carry really does matter. Are you okay with the interactions? If you're okay with the interactions and you've told yourself before you even engage in the conversation with your child that this is okay, they're just learning, I'm the parent, that's my role. Their role is to be a child and be a learner. My role is to be a parent and be a teacher. I'm okay with that dynamic. I'm going to engage in the teaching. It doesn't bug me to have to do any of this teaching, because this is what they do during this phase of life, is they learn lesson after lesson, and soon the lessons will become less and less. And I will probably have to do less teaching, and they will just do a lot more self-correction as they continue to mature. If I tell myself that type of thing before I engage in an interaction, then I don't have to take any of that interaction personally, and I can just move forward with calmness and assurance that they can learn and that the teaching will hit its mark. Now, how do we make sure the teaching hits its mark? Well, the tone is one thing, the calmness, but what about the structure? Because in order to create an environment where self-government can be learned, there needs to be a certain type of a tone and a certain type of a structure. This means that the child needs to know ahead of time how you will go through an interaction, like a correction interaction. So what do you do to make sure that they know that? Well, you let them in on the words that you will use. In this book here, which is kind of my central work, Parenting a House United, I talk about certain scripts that you might want to use with your children. So those scripts include how to correct the children, how to pre-teach the children, how to help them get in control when they're starting to lose control. Those scripts have certain steps that you follow. The words sound nearly the same every time because you have certain cue phrases that you use. In fact, I actually have cue cards to remind me of some of those cue phrases so that I follow the process that I learn in this book or in any of the Teaching Self-Government courses. So when you cue your child, then they immediately go to front brain and they start thinking about the situation. Also, you start sounding safer, like you accept what has occurred, because that tone of acceptance is super important. If you use the same words every time, they're not going to take the correction personally. You don't need to take it personally either. This removes all of that emotion that could come across as condescending to your children. I always tell people that home should be the safest place to make mistakes. And it's true. Within the family dynamic, it should be safe to make a mistake. A correction shouldn't be something that feels damaging to a person. Now, it is true that in our society, we do have a circumstance where some people are thinking anytime you just don't agree with them at all, that that's condescending or somehow demeaning to them, and they're willing to fight people over it. I mean, you could be dealing with a situation like that, but also I do know that parents sometimes just come across in a way that suggests to their child that they don't approve of their child as a person now because the child made a mistake. And we need to be careful about that. Making sure that you tell your child ahead of time exactly what you're going to say in the moment of correction prepares them to go, oh, this isn't personal. This isn't something I need to get emotional about. This is just me being corrected in a way that I knew would happen and happens all the time. So that brings me to consistency. When you consistently correct your children the same every time and stick to that script, using that calm voice tone, that tone of acceptance, your children have practice at being corrected, and so then they don't experience as many feelings associated with the correction. Instead, they just go, oh yeah, this is normal, and they're able to move on. So make sure you stay consistent. Now, this is just barely scratching the tip of the iceberg when we're talking about self-government. I could go on a lot about that topic, but this video was just about how to not be condescending, although I'm pretty sure you would like some more information about self-government if you're really going to go down this road of self-government training for your children. So I highly recommend that you watch the next video, which is called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. That video will go into more detail about what types of skills and scripts that you can use with your children to make sure that teaching is predictable and something that you can be consistent with. Click on the link to that video now. I'll see you there.